I'm Senator Bartolotta, and welcome to Focus on the 46th. Today we've got a serious show. We haven't done one like this, but we're here to talk about Bentworth School District and a partial program that they have. They've been doing this for 8 years. Now, we're going to talk about what that means. Not many of you know what that is, but it is a way to help kids with mental health issues stay in school, succeed in school, and move forward. And their success rate is astronomical. I'm going to let our superintendent, Mr. Scott Martin, talk about that, and Mr. Neil Forsyth, who's the team leader for the partial program. And we're also going to hear from 2 students who have gone through this program and are doing very, very well. Please stay tuned. And welcome back, and we're here with Superintendent Scott Martin, who is going to explain the best way, much better than I could, about this incredible partial program that you have right here at this school district. And we're gonna hear all the ins and outs of it. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Senator. I appreciate you being here today. We have a partial hospitalization program that's in our public schools. We have it K through 12, and it's in our elementary, middle, and high school. And what the partial hospitalization program is, it addresses mental health needs of our students. And I know that mental health is a huge topic in the state and across the nation with school districts, that so many of our students just have significant mental health needs. So several years ago, I had met a gentleman who works with Centerville Clinics. And I met him in a meeting, and we just started talking, and then over the years developed a relationship and spoke quite a bit about why were these programs not in a public school, because they were standalone. They were in separate schools, separate facilities. And
by these programs, what do you mean?
Partial hospitalization programs.
Okay, so typically they were in a central location, and kids would be bused from their home school into these facilities.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay.
And for us, we had students being bused 45 minutes just to get there. And the other thing that we ran into is we couldn't send a student there unless they were in special education. So that was a big problem for us, that because there's many students that have mental health needs that are not in special education.
Right, and we see more and more and more of that all the time. I know you and I had this conversation a long time ago. I think the first time I came here was about 2 years ago. But there are so many children now whose parents are either incarcerated or deceased because of drug issues and overdoses. And it's becoming more and more prevalent, especially out here in the southwest of Pennsylvania.
Absolutely, and being a rural school district, it's even more difficult because those resources are few and far between. So throughout those years, we just kept up those conversations, and then at some point became the right time. And we began a partial hospitalization program at the high school. And that first year, we brought our students back from several different school districts, several different locations, and that was tough.
Yeah.
That was tough. And that first year, the success of graduation rates, we had 4 students that actually did not graduate that first year. But since that time, we've only had 2.
Wow.
So that first year, bringing all those students together from many different places, many different backgrounds, it was difficult. But after that, it's been done much better.
And I know too, one of the times I was here and I sat through a wonderful presentation of this entire program, you had said that it was also a culture change with the faculty.
Absolutely.
It's just something for them to get used to dealing with, kids. Maybe there might be a little bit of a crisis at home or something with a student, and nobody really knows it. And instead of sitting and suffering through the day, those kids can be excused from the classroom and go directly into another environment where they have counselors and assistance and treatment right here on the school property.
Absolutely. And one of the things that Neil, the team leader for the partials, always says is, don't suffer in silence. And that's so true. So the students come together and they are able to get that support. But building that culture among your staff is so critical, because the staff have to understand that algebra may not be the most important thing to that student on that day. And so the flexibility and getting them so they feel comfortable. And it's not that they don't understand. A lot of times I believe the reason that staff sometimes push back is because of fear. They're fearful of not being able to meet the child's needs.
Right.
It's not because they don't want to, they may not know how to.
Right.
And so we need to support them and give them permission to be flexible and allow those students to go back and have that counseling in real time, as opposed to, no, you have to stay in my class for the next 50 minutes.
Right, and tomorrow you get on a bus for 45 minutes to go a special place. No, things need to be addressed immediately in many, many cases. And to that point, how many counselors do you have right here on staff?
From Centerville Clinics, there are 9 counselors in the school districts.
Okay.
9 different folks that work with mental health needs. And those folks are in the classrooms, so they can go to the general education classroom with the student. They can be in a separate classroom where the students are. So it's very flexible as how the students' needs are being met. And that's what's wonderful. And Neil can address and speak to the laws that require the number of students. But the other great thing is, being in a rural school district, we have a child psychiatrist that comes here weekly. So if a child has medical needs, medication needs, that child psychiatrist can make changes on a weekly basis, depending on what the counselors are saying, depending on the feedback from the teachers. So it can real-time information, real-time changes. And for many of our parents, they may not have access to a vehicle to get to the doctors, to get to Centerville, to get that counseling or to get to that medication change. So that's been a big benefit.
And one of the things that I really loved to hear was the fact that, again, instead of doing what a lot of different counties across Pennsylvania do, and that's ship their kids to a centralized location, and they offer such a minimal list of academics. A lot of those kids who have those needs and really need those needs to be addressed, they don't have access to AP classes or advanced anything. But right here, you can offer so many of those things to these kids, and that opens a door for them in their future for going to college or going to any kind of a trade school, just moving forward. You're not just handling those issues while they're here, and then after they graduate, if they do, good luck to you. You really give them vast opportunities to move forward in such a positive way. How many AP classes do you have here, and what's your take on that?
That's absolutely one of the huge benefits, is every student that comes here in the partial program or in receiving those services, they do have access to every course we have in this district, plus all of our extracurricular, all of our school dances, our proms, everything. They are one of our students. I oftentimes get kind of possessive because I want to hand them their diploma. And we have students that return to their home district because they're doing so well and really can't justify them being here any longer. And that's difficult because we do develop relationships with our students. So that's very, very important. We have a graduation rate from the partial. The graduation rate's 87%.
Wow, I don't know of another high school that is like that. I just don't.
And that's with the students in the partial. And so these students are doing well. They're succeeding. And there's many tangible things you can look at as far as their attendance, graduation rates, grades, those types of things. But there's so many intangibles. When they come in and you see them smiling, when they come in and they start developing relationships, not only with students in the partial, but students in the general education classes. And the students that come here in the partial, they may be in the partial first period and then go to an AP physics class second period, and then go back to the partial and receive more counseling, and then maybe go out to a learning support English class. So it's really based on the student. And we have several students that are now attending our tech, our CTC program, and then come here for the partial and get the other academics. So it really is based on the student, and we can meet the student where they are, as opposed to sending them to someplace and trying to fit them into that facility.
Right, and 2 points to that exactly. Instead of removing them from their home school district and everything else, sometimes a lot of those bad issues are happening in that particular environment. They're being bullied, or they just can't deal with some of the things happening there, and some issues aren't being addressed perhaps. But instead of being removed from that and having more of a stigma attached to that, getting on a bus and going to your special school, they're here all the time. And you're not just making those kids in the partial program feel accepted and welcomed. All these other students too are becoming better people, because they're showing respect and acceptance to those kids that are in this program and realizing, they have issues. They have something going on, and I need to understand that, and I need to be supportive. And it makes those other students better people too.
Absolutely, and I always say our worst students are another district's best students. We have great students here that develop relationships with each other, and I would tend to say that most of the students the students that are in the partial and the students that are not in the partial, most of the other students aren't even aware, because it's not as if we're going around saying things about, they're here because of, or they're here because of this. Right. They're just another student that comes to our district. And we have served students from 11 different school districts here.
Right.
And it's really amazing to see how they come in, because as you said, one of the biggest changes you could do is facility-wise. So you're bringing a student into a whole new facility, a whole new culture. And oftentimes this culture, I believe Bentworth's culture is very different from most. We are very accepting, and students come here and they tend to do well. We do have, just like anywhere else, we have some students that do not. But we also have students from Bentworth that go to other partials.
Oh, okay.
Because their needs cannot be met through our partial. So it's truly looking at each individual student and coming up with how we can meet their need.
Well, I think we're going to, we could talk about this all day long.
Yes, we could.
But we only have a limited amount of time, and I really want to talk with some other folks and actually talk to some students who are here, who are going to tell some stories. And I want to warn you a little bit ahead of time. Some of the topics might be a little bit uncomfortable for some people, so just want to give you a little bit of a warning there. Some parents like to watch the show, but just to put that out there and give you a little bit of a warning, and we'll say it again before we get to that little segment. Stay tuned. Here is Neil Forsyth, who is the team leader of the partial program. And before we get into your story, real quickly, can you explain to me just shortly what exactly is the partial program? Why do you call it the partial program?
So it is technically a partial hospitalization program, which is a day treatment program for children and adolescents with mental health and behavioral health needs. It is less intensive than a inpatient hospital stay, but it is more intensive than outpatient therapy. We have day treatment for the kids that includes group and individual therapy, family therapy. We have a psychiatrist on site 2 hours a week for every 5 children in our program. So I have a psychiatrist here 8 hours a week because I have 20 students in the program. As the students do better with their treatment, the less they are in our program. Most students start out in the program around 6 hours a day, and then the hours reduce as the students are more stable and have fewer symptoms and are being more successful in school.
Okay, so you have a bit of a different story. Why don't you tell me a little bit about how you were involved with contacting Bentworth for your child?
My son's home district approached me about this fantastic program. I'm an administrator at the district, so whenever this went down, they approached me that there's this thing happening at Bentworth School District that that would probably meet my son's needs. You know, it was a hard overcoming at first. I just kept thinking maybe he would grow out of this, these mental health issues, maybe things are going to get better. It's just the age. And you know, after a few hospitalizations and things like that, we said we got to give something a try. You know, counseling, it's hard to get a counselor, it's hard to get a psychiatrist, it's hard to get appointments. You know, sometimes you wait months, and they were able to put him right in here. He started in the summer last year, started here during the main school district. He came 3 semesters. Neil talked about 6 hours. His 6 hours went from 5 hours, 4 hours, 3 hours, attending all classes, to some setbacks during the situation, but there were growth through the whole thing. And I think, and I talked to the superintendent of our home district, and I actually talked to our school board recently about, you know, just the communication between these guys and the parents and the psychiatrists, just everything that's going on to keep us up to date. Mr. Martin, who already talked, fantastic, handed me a cell phone number. Neil handed me a cell phone number, and just anything to, like, you know, help my son with his needs. And you know, I think they've been met. The 4th semester, he was able to return home to the district. The grades aren't what he likes them to be. It's not what the parents wanted them to be, but he talked a lot about, like, his, you know, communication with the students and fitting in better and feeling better about himself, which has been, you know, awesome.
That makes all the difference in the world. Acceptance and making friends and liking to go to school, and wanting to be there. You can't learn if you don't like where you are. So it's so wonderful to know that the doors just swung open as soon as you reached out and said, hey, what do I do? And Mr. Forsyth and Mr. Martin being available to you all hours, no matter what you needed. And that's not a singular story. I'm sure that goes for every single student and their parents who come to Bentworth. So we're going to hear your son's story off camera, because he is, you know, young, and we want to give him his privacy. But we'll hear your son's story, and I'm really proud of you for reaching out, and proud of all the other students whose parents have come to you and trusted in you and now are flourishing. So how long have you been at Bentworth?
I've been here since the end of my 9th grade year, and I'm now going into my senior year.
Great, okay. And I know that you have a story, and it might be easy for you to read that story. If you would like to, you could absolutely feel free.
Okay. So I'd like to say my childhood was normal. For the most part, it was. My parents separated when I was about 3 years old, and soon after they both got with new people. The first few years were good. We used to go on family vacations with my mom and her boyfriend. One year we rented a van so everyone could fit. There were 10 of us. I sat by his oldest kid, and while my mom and her boyfriend were driving, he made me touch him inappropriately. I kept trying to make it stop, but he started to threaten me, and he said one thing that always stuck in my mind. He said, "Why? My girlfriend does it all the time." This went on multiple times, but then stopped. Once this stopped, I started to get bullied in school, mostly about my weight. This hurt me really bad. I knew I shouldn't feel like this. I would go to the nurse to try to leave school a lot of the time. That was 5th grade. 6th grade really cut me some slack. Although I lost my best friend because we were in different classes and didn't see each other as much, only at lunchtime. 7th grade, I got my first serious boyfriend. At first it was good, but then he started pressuring me into having sex with him. I told him no, but he didn't like that. One night I attended his boxing practice and he got punched in the face. And when we got back to his house, he started saying sex would make it better. Once I left his house that night, I started receiving nasty text messages, all because I didn't want to have sex with him. I was 13, too young. One day after school, he invited me over. He told me to put my stuff in his room. As I was doing that, he locked the door behind him. I prefer not to bring that up. I finally got out of that relationship. At this point, 8th grade rolled around. I was still getting bullied at this time. One day, someone asked me where the other half of my body was. They said, "Is it in the basement?" That comment broke my heart. People are so cruel. I don't get what I ever did to them. During this time, I started to make myself throw up my meals because I didn't like the way I looked, and I thought everyone's opinions on me were true. 9th grade was pretty good at the beginning. A few days after my birthday in March, a picture was sent around of me. It was embarrassing. It was only meant for one of my girlfriends, but one day at school, I said something at the wrong time to the wrong person, and he sent it around. My art teacher ended up getting it, which led to me getting my phone taken. That night when I went home, I tried to kill myself. I took handfuls of pills. I ended up having to get the IV antidote to reverse the effects. I was told if I would have taken any more, I would have needed a liver transplant. I then went to Southwood and stayed there for a few weeks, got released, went home, and I started to cut myself really badly. I ended up going to Western Psych, and then soon after I left there, I was enrolled at the Bentworth Partial Program. It has changed my life. Since coming to Bentworth, I've only been hospitalized one other time. I haven't cut in 6 months. I have my license, a car, and 2 jobs. This program has really changed my life, and I'm so grateful for it. And I'm so grateful I had the opportunity to spend the last 3 years here and now my senior year. The staff helped me so much, and they've been very supportive. Lastly, I want to thank everybody in my life who has been there for me in this crazy ride.
That was really brave of you to do that.
Thank you.
And I've been here before when you've read that, and I know you just want to get through it quickly and be done with it, but giving your message and telling your story to people hopefully will help a lot of other people, girls that find themselves in similar situations and realize it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to ask for support and for help because it is there. You've moved on from Bentworth now? You've sort of finished up here a little bit? Do you come back occasionally, or are you spending most of your time in your home school?
I don't spend any time here anymore.
Okay.
I'm fully integrated into my home school.
Oh, great. And do you notice a difference now that you're at your home school?
Yeah, none of the drama really bugs me anymore. I had this huge problem with overreacting, and I'm able to control that a lot better now.
Wow, that's fantastic. Because there is a whole lot of drama in most high schools.
Yeah.
Way too much. And by coming to Bentworth, you were able to learn the tools that you can use to kind of diffuse those situations when you're at your home school?
Yeah, it was one of the best therapeutic experiences I've had.
That's wonderful. So what other things did you find helpful here in the partial program?
I'm very socially awkward. I keep within a small circle of people and I never reach out. And when that circle fights, I'm often left alone. And they convinced me to reach out, step out of my comfort zone. And by doing so, I joined the high school musical. And we did Peter Pan, and it was one of the best experiences I've had. I made so many new friends, and I felt like I belonged somewhere.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. What's your advice to some of those kids?
Sometimes you just gotta step back and see things like from a third eye view, like a fly on the wall. Because maybe the way you're looking at it and and the way somebody else is looking at it isn't the most healthier ways, because it's biased either way. So you have to step back, realize the flaws in your mindset, and try and go from there.
And being at Bentworth helped you get those tools to do that, right?
Yeah.
He's come a long way.
That's
Really
wonderful.
proud of him.
I want to say what we offer here, I like to call it like one-stop shopping.
Okay.
Individual therapy, group therapy, psychiatry, medication management, family therapy, everything is done here.
Well, we've certainly heard a lot in this episode, and it's a little more serious than anything I've done, but I feel it's really, really vital to get this message out there. And I want to ask you, Mr. Martin, what is it that people can do if they live in the Washington County area, if their child seems to be needing some services?
Well, the first thing they need to do is contact their local school district, and any student that's referred to us comes through their local school district. To call us is kind of missing a couple steps in the process, so that would be the first thing to do, is contact their local school district, probably begin with their principal, and then go through the process. The principal should be able to refer them on to someone in their district.
Okay, wonderful. And for any of those across all of Pennsylvania, I would recommend you do that too. Contact your counselor, contact your principal, and say, look, there's some issues and we need some help. And they should be able to put you down the right path, because there's light at the end of the tunnel, as we've seen. There's help out there. And I certainly hope that you reach out. And thanks again for taking the time to watch Focus on the 46th, and I will see you next time.